So a heat pump is a very complicated piece of equipment. But the good news is that at a very high level, it's kind of doing what is a very simple thing, even though it takes a very complex piece of equipment to do it. What a heat pump does is it takes one unit of electricity and it uses that electricity to capture heat from the surrounding environment of the heat pump. And usually, in most cases, a heat pump can take one unit of electricity to capture 2 units of heat from around the environment it's in. And putting the unit of electricity and the 2 units of heat together, it can then create 3 units of heat. So it sounds like a bit of science fiction because you're getting more energy out than you're putting in, but the magic is happening because you're soaking up heat from your surrounding environment. And that surrounding environment can vary in different applications. Some people might have heard of an air source heat pump where the surrounding environment is the air. Some people might have heard of a ground source heat pump where the surrounding environment is the ground. And what we often do in Astatine is we use surplus heat from industrial applications as the heat source from the surrounding environment. So heat that people are currently throwing away, we can use the heat pump to capture that heat and put it back into the industrial process. So it sounds complicated, and in fairness, it is complicated, but at a high level, it's 1 unit of electricity to capture 2 additional units of heat from its surrounding environment. And as a result, you're getting 3 units of heat out. And the magic in all of this is for 1 unit of electricity in, you're therefore getting 3 times the heat out. And this efficiency gain is what makes heat pumps and large scale heat pumps so attractive. Because if you put in 1 unit of electricity and get 3 units of heat out, that's a huge efficiency gain. And even though the upfront investment in heat pumps can be higher than other technologies, this huge efficiency gain is what makes the solution pay off in the long run. In terms of heat pump technology, what's really important for people to be aware of is how fast the technology is developing. And this is where there can be a lot of misunderstandings about what a heat pump's capability is. And a lot of this relates back to the temperature that a heat pump can deliver heat at. Many people, when they talk about heat pumps in a home, for example, those heat pumps are only providing 50, 55 degrees Celsius heat. So people might think, that's too low for the applications I would need in my industrial heat process. But at the larger scale, the temperature level that heat pumps have been capable of delivering has been exponentially growing in recent times. And this is in many ways thanks to the industry realizing that in order to decarbonize, we need clean solutions like heat pumps to be able to provide heat at higher temperature levels. So this chart, it's only indicative, it's not exact. I'm sure there's some outliers in this historical overview of how heat pumps have evolved for industrial applications. But what you can see is from 1980 to about 2010, they went from being able to provide around 50 to 70 degrees Celsius up to about 100 degrees Celsius. So, a 20, 30 degrees Celsius jump. But in the last 10 years, they've gone from being able to do 100 degrees Celsius to today being able to deliver up to 200 degrees Celsius. So this rapid increase in capability in terms of the temperature they can deliver has meant that an awful lot more industries can now use this technology. So if you looked at a heat pump 5 or 10 years ago and thought it wasn't for you, I'd advise you have a look again, because things have changed and are changing rapidly right now in terms of this technology's capability. If you want to get a sense of if a heat pump is suitable for you, this chart, which was published in an academic paper recently, gives a very nice overview of the type of applications that a large-scale industrial heat pump is now an ideal solution for. And in Astatine, what we do is deliver turnkey solutions for industrial users, for large-scale heat pumps that can replace all your Scope 1 carbon emissions from your existing boiler by replacing it with a large-scale heat pump. So if you see yourself in this list of applications, there's a very good chance there's a large-scale heat pump solution ready and proven and waiting for you. Just to say a little bit on the carbon emissions, because I know that's a very top of mind for people right now. The reason that the heat pump, not only does it remove all your Scope 1 carbon emissions, it also has a very significant impact on your Scope 2 carbon emissions. And that's because the electricity emissions on the grid are reducing so rapidly in parallel at present. So what this chart shows at a very high level is what your carbon emissions would be per unit of heat that you produce if you were using an oil boiler, an LPG boiler, or a gas boiler, versus what they would be if you're using a heat pump. And the reason that the heat pump carbon emissions are declining so rapidly is that the electricity we use for powering the heat pumps is getting cleaner every year that passes, because we're developing more and more renewable electricity in Ireland. So you have a huge carbon reduction by moving from a boiler to a heat pump. And that, between the efficiency gain, the improvement in technology, and the huge carbon reductions that you achieve, this is why large-scale heat pumps have been deployed at scale across Europe for the last 30 to 40 years.